The Abantu Book Festival is in full swing this weekend. One of the issues highlighted is the need for information on self-publishing.
Now, of course, this can be a quite daunting process, but there have been some people who have been involved with self-publishing, and they're here to talk to us. We're joined by author Monde Nkasawe.
So, Monde, if you can just take us through the process of self-publishing, what prompted you to get into that?
Well, in my case, I had a plan on writing a number of stories in quick succession. And I thought that having done a little bit of research about the publishing industry, the turnaround times, in terms of replying to your request for publishing, and the likely rejection, of course, I thought maybe for me the self-publishing route would work. And that's why you would find that at about 2014, when I started writing, I published three books in the year, which I thought I would not have been able to do had I not been self-publishing. Of course, it's possible that I'm wrong, but I thought that that was the benefit of it, yeah.
And of course, to get involved in the whole process, you also need a bit of capital to start you off. So it's not necessarily a decision that one wakes up in the morning and decides, yes, I'm writing a book. Perhaps talk to us about that. How much money do you actually need when you want to self-publish?
Well, you need quite a lot of money, which is why it's tough, because many people write, all they know is the story they are writing. And then the idea of publishing is a bit of an afterthought, and they have not made the budget. I mean, in my case, I paid around about 20 to 25,000 rand a book each time I had to pay for production of the book. And then there's still printing costs that go further down the line depending on the printing quantities you are making. It is not something that anybody can do, and without support, most self-published writers just alone all the time. There's no support for that. It's something that you make your own investment, that I want this story out, and therefore I'm going to make this commitment for it to be out. Yeah.
So the route of self-publishing sure sounds to me, from what you're saying right now,
yeah,
as a long and arduous process. If you can just take us through what the process is of self-publishing.
Well, the process itself isn't long. That's why I'm saying for me that was actually more beneficial, because a number of steps, because of it is self-published, there are these quality issues that we don't know. You find a self-publishing company which will assume that you've worked through your manuscript, you've done a lot of the editing that needs to be done, or you've outsourced those editing things. So by the time you submit it for it to be turned into a book, all of that work has been done, because you find that many self-publishing companies do not have the capacity in-house of, the design of the book in terms of that quality work. So which makes the process a lot shorter, but suspect in terms of the quality that goes with it.
And I think oftentimes what the experience that at least some people who are self-publishing that they've shared with me is that they actually don't know where to go in terms of finding people that will be able to do proofreading for them, good editing for their books. But are you finding that with the rise of self-publishing in South Africa, there's perhaps greater access for people to get that information, or do you pretty much have to figure it out as you go along?
Most of the time you pretty much have to figure it out as you go along. It requires that you have your own plan before you do that. You actually put a book out. Have your own plan about the production processes around it. And I know that many people who write don't have those skills. All you do is to simply write a story, and then you then suddenly find that I must look for an editor, and what is out there, if you have not done research, you'll get somebody, if your book isn't written in English, you'll get somebody who has read English but isn't an editor. can help you with grammar and everything, but that's not the editing, really.
So basically the flow of the book is still all over the place.
Yes, it will still be all over the place because the person isn't really, scientifically speaking, an editor. And depending on the type of book there is, for example, with fiction, it's important to focus on structure of the book because it talks to how the story also is felt. So it's something that as a self-publishing author you really need to pay attention on and do that kind of research before you get out there, because you're also going to be seriously disappointed when people are giving you feedback about how really bad the book is. And maybe people are going to be nice and not say this to you, but you're going to feel it in the end that actually the reaction is that the book is not up to scratch. But that's not to say it's not possible to write an exceedingly good book on your own, but pay attention. Pay attention.
You touched a bit about the expense that comes with self-publishing. How much would you say, how much money would you make versus when self-publishing versus the amount of money you'd make regarding the sales of the book?
Well, I would not know ballpark figures. In my case, I wasn't writing because I wanted to make money. I was writing because I wanted to learn how to write. And I wanted to create a footprint of writing out there. And so I wasn't concerned so much about money. Selling books is about knowing marketing strategies that are involved in the sale of books. So those are the things that you also need to learn. You want to sell books from the boot of your car. When you find distributors, they are not free. They cost, they are part of the value chain that subtracts from the price of the book. So you need to, I was saying at Abantu yesterday that you really also need to do self-introspection about the kind of person you are. If you are an introverted person, which most writers are actually, that's kind of reclusive in character, learn to outlearn that because you need to talk to people. You need to talk to audiences. You need to be out there. You need to engage both about your book and about all things that are relating to books so that you build a bit of a profile about you being a writer and the things that you are concerned with in writing.
And you certainly almost have to be somewhat aggressive about it, don't you? Because if you know, for some instances, some people who are self-published don't always have a copy of their books available.
Yes, yes.
You're not going to find it at exclusive books
yes,
or,
yeah.
you know, your mainstream media stores. And, you know, that's where you make your money. So if you're going to an event, you have to think about, can I bring my books with, and can I sell my books at this event? And so you have to think out of the box around how you're going to get your product out there.
We go to funerals, and as soon as the process of the funeral is over and everybody's happy, then you can say, guys, I do have copies of my books in my car.
At a funeral.
Yeah, you know, everywhere. The idea is that everywhere where there are people, try, of course, you don't want to make a nuisance of yourself.
Yeah.
You be conscious of that. But don't miss moments where people are gathered and talking socially about literature. You know, yeah.
Now, also joining us in this discussion, we have Vanessa Wilson at our Cape Town studios. Vanessa, you've written a book discussing the issue around self-publishing. Would you say there's been a rise, or are we seeing more and more authors going independent, or rather self-publishing?
All right, we seem to have lost Vanessa there, and no audio coming to us from Cape Town. We'll try and work on that line, but let's continue in studio with Monde.
So, Monde, the same question that I posed to Vanessa, are we seeing a rise in the number of authors going at it alone?
Yes, of course I've not done any study in that regard, but my sense is that there is a definite rise. You must understand that when a person has written a manuscript, they have a sense of urgency to get it out. And it's not a sense of urgency that always met by the publishing industry. That's always understood. When you send your manuscript out to traditional publishing houses, they are not reacting to you on how urgently you feel that they need to react. So people tend to then take the route which is shorter but fraught with its own issues of self-publishing. Yeah. There is indeed a rise in my view. Yeah.
You know, one of the difficulties, and I think a lot of self-published authors perhaps don't really put enough thought into, is what they're writing about and the relevance to a society and why people would be interested. You know, a story can always be great when I'm sitting down sharing it with Nhlanhla and Monde, but is it something that somebody's going to walk into a shop and buy? Is it something somebody's going to want to get more of? So in terms of actual training, in terms of what should be going into a book when you have this great idea. You know, publishing houses have that very thorough streamlining of ideas mechanisms. Self-publishers, you know, seem to not necessarily have that, which is why the books tend to be all over the place.
Yeah. As I say, you are on your own. You've not done any training in most cases. You've not done any training. All that has happened in your head is that there's a story you want to write, and that's really all there is that you have. Is that I've got this powerful story, and my sense of this, just judging by some of the feedback I get from people wanting assistance with their books, it's personal stories of an autobiographical nature that sometimes, you know, traditional publishers will tell you autobiographies sell because your name is out there, not because your story itself is powerful, but because your name is sellable. And so if you don't know these things and you've not had training about how to write and project yourself in writing and lead into it before you actually put a book out, you find that because training is there, it's also part of what costs, which people just cannot afford also.
So Vanessa Wilson is back with us to tell us more about self-publishing. Vanessa, would you describe the process of self-publishing as one that's fulfilling for authors?
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's one of the reasons why authors do it. They have full control over their projects. But, you know, Monde's put it very well when, you know, he's described all the challenges. It can also be a challenging process. But I think that if authors are well equipped and aware of what they need to get into in the process, if they have the right advice, if they have guidance, it does become a fulfilling process despite the challenges.
Vanessa, one of the things that we also see with a lot of people that self-publish is that it doesn't seem to be reliable as a main source of income. People don't get into self-publishing because they want to make money, and so often the advice is that don't quit your day job just yet. What would you say to people who you have this burning passion in your heart, but is that should you quit your day job?
I wouldn't say just yet. I think you have to learn about the industry. I think the main problem with independent publishing, as Monde put it, is that authors are generally not entrepreneurial. They are teachers, healers. They want to enrich others. Often they are introverts, and self-publishing does require, and I love this example of selling books out the boot of his car at a funeral. You have to take advantage of every opportunity. A book is a product like any other product, and it needs constant promoting, constant marketing. Having said that, though, If you sell lots of books directly to your target market, you can make far more than you would publishing the traditional route. So it's up to the author, and it's very dependent on direct-to-customer sales. That's where you will make your money.
I think, Vanessa, just before we let you go, on this issue of being able to market oneself, perhaps talk to us about the fine line between trying to get your book out there and simply becoming a nuisance to everybody around you, where you have a copy of your book everywhere you go, and the first thing you say to people is, well, here's a copy of my book, good morning, how are you?
Look, I think that it helps. Social media helps a lot. So if an author can upskill themselves with their social media skills, or even use the services of a social media expert, that's a good start. But they can try and attend fairs, exhibitions, appropriate channels for pushing their book. I think that taking a stand at a shopping centre on a weekend, there are many innovative ways that authors can use to promote their books without becoming a nuisance. The book that I've published, which you brought up a bit earlier, does detail some of the marketing options that authors can use to promote their books. And in fact, it takes authors through the entire publishing process. I mean, I wrote it, my co-author and I, to address many of the problems that Monde has brought up. I think that understanding the industry will help authors a lot in terms of what goes into making a book, what goes into making a quality book. And that's what I was aiming at with this book. How do you create a quality product? How do you market it? How do you distribute it? The book answers all those questions and is really based on the problems that authors have come to us over 12 years of consulting and publishing for them. It aims to address all of that.
Okay. Perhaps, Vanessa, before I let you go, where can we get a hold of this book? Where can people go if they need more information?
Sure. They can log on to publisher.co.za. They can also go to major bookstores. It's available in Take-A-Lot. But we would recommend the publisher.co.za store if they like, because that's promoting or supporting authors directly. And in fact, all self-publishing authors can sell their books through that store. It was developed specifically to help self-published authors.
Very interesting discussion, Kathy. That was author Monde Nkasawe and Vanessa Wilson.